right. Hello and welcome everybody to another town hall. My name's Justin and my co-host today is Katie. Want to give everybody a few minutes to check in and jump in the chat. Let us know where you're logging in from, and we'll give everybody a couple minutes here, and then we'll get started. We have a few interesting topics today. We're taking some of the questions from last week, and we're going to address them. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our HT Social Fast Five. And I wanted to give Katie a chance to kind of go into a little bit about her background real quick and who she is, and then I'll go through mine as well. So Katie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm the second half of the brother-sister duo. We started Hometown Social originally to help small businesses in their marketing endeavors, and it turned into a lot more than just small businesses and marketing endeavors. We do websites and branding. We manage e-commerce platforms, Google, Facebook ads, the whole nine. Basically anything that's online, we can help somebody optimize and help find pathways for growth in brick and mortar as well. So that's kind of our forte. And I definitely specialize in e-commerce platforms such as Amazon and Walmart, and individual websites as well. So that's kind of my role, is facilitating growth for ourselves and for our clients.
Yeah. And for me, my role is a CMO. So basically, you can think of everything that has to do with sales and marketing. I touch in some way, shape, or form. My whole goal is to optimize the platforms that companies are using and each step of the customer journey. So Katie really specializes in Amazon and in those e-commerce platforms, where a lot of the things that I touch are the initial placement of the ad or the creative on the social platform or through SEO art marketing and those articles, and then through to the call to action, to the follow-up nurturing email campaigns, all the way into the intro and initial contact with a salesperson for a company. So that's my role and what we do. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And it looks like we have a few people who've checked in. We even have someone here from California, Ohio, some from South Carolina. So glad to have you guys in the meeting today. And go ahead and post your questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to them here shortly. So Katie, if you want to go through and start your Fast Five and let us know what you've been doing this week and what you've learned and some of the tips, tricks, pointers, you can go ahead and share that with the group.
Yeah, so we started doing our Fast Five as a good way to just kind of chat through some things, some best practices. We found that a lot of people found it really helpful the past couple times that we've gone through it. So we're going to keep this probably in every segment thing. Whether or not it was our plan, it kind of became customary to do a focus for the Fast Five. So last week, for example, I did Fast Five with a focus of productivity. This week, I'm focusing on tips for revenue growth. It's just whatever is kind of top of mind, what we're diving into that week. So this is what I'm finding myself really hankering down on, probably because of the beginning of the quarter. Definitely good to go through these more frequent rather than less frequent, once a quarter, if at the absolute minimum, I would say. But I'll get into it. So number one, definitely on par, overarching theme. And I know when I say this is going to mean a million different things, opening a can of worms here, but it's really important to truly dive into the finances of your business. For me, because I manage those who sell products, profit margin is top of mind for me a lot. Amazon takes a ton of fees. There's returns you have to think about, all the FBA fees, all the shipping fees, advertising costs, but I'm talking the whole thing. So where are you sourcing your products from? The whole nine yards here. So if you're selling services rather than goods, these questions are going to be a lot different. Also depending on your industry, what kinds of bottlenecks you might run into or what kinds of additional costs you might accrue. But costs are rising right now. And so this is something that we're really focusing on for a lot of our clients. So definitely make sure, you dig in and you dust off the cobwebs and you know exactly what your profit margins are, because it really drives the everyday decisions that you make, whether it's, how much you can afford to spend on ads, or if you want to choose a loss leader because, you think in the long run, this is going to be the new, most profitable or highest grossing product that you have. It's definitely good to just really be intimate with these details, because if not, you don't really know where the state of the business is. And ultimately, businesses for the most part are created obviously with a purpose in mind, but their goal is to drive revenue. So this is underlying all of the decisions and questions on your day to day, and has to be top of mind. So number one is dive into your finances, really check on those profit margins and see how you're doing, and see if there's, ways to kind of improve things. This is another way to grow revenue, and this focus is more on growing your brand presence and your brand awareness. You'll hear everybody and their brother talking about, I mean, that's funny because me and my brother are going to talk about this, but everyone's talking about, which social media platforms you should be present on. Being present on social media doesn't mean being present on every single social media channel. You have to do what makes the most sense for your brand, and also what's actually possible and plausible for you to be consistent on. So figure out which channels your customers are on, and make sure you're consistently posting on those couple of channels. It doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't have to be every day. Just something consistent, something you can actually, really commit to, and make sure you're showing up there authentically as frequently as you can, but do it in a way that you know is going to be possible, and do it where it's most relevant. Don't feel like you have to do everything all the time. It's not possible, and it's not, worth the investment of time and resources, most likely. So profit margins and growing your overall brand awareness through social media are the first two we've covered. Number three, this is something I think I fall victim to all the time, but evaluate which tasks you're prioritizing based on whether or not they're really going to move the needle. Especially with me doing so much ad data analysis, I'll find myself cleaning up all of the ad campaigns. There might be 100 campaigns, 200 campaigns in one single account for a single client. And if I find that I'm working too much on campaigns that aren't really even making that many sales, even if the return is poor, I know that, my time is better spent somewhere else. So really make sure that your tasks throughout the day are focusing on those top revenue drivers. I'm not saying to not focus on the little details whatsoever, because I know that it's the culmination of all of this that makes for a good, healthy, growing business. But definitely make sure the majority of your tasks, your thoughts, and your priorities are focused on the most important things, because ultimately that's where the biggest influence is going to come from. Okay, let's see. Number 4, don't be afraid to make investments, especially if it's going to be worth it. I think out of the two of us, Justin's probably more brave. I wouldn't say he's less conservative as far as making investments go, but he'll be more firm on our decision if we know there's something worth paying for, whether it's a tool that we're going to use or a different platform we're going to get into, whatever it is. Once we make the argument that we know it's going to be worth it, he is much more willing to pull the trigger than I am sometimes. So I'm glad we have that balance. But if you know in your head that whatever finance you're going to commit to is going to have a positive benefit, even if it's not immediate, if you really think it's worth it, just go for it. That's kind of how we got into business in general, right? You've got to take those risks. That's how you get the reward and you reap the benefits. So if you know it's going to make sense, don't be afraid to make the investment, because in the long run, it's more than likely going to be worth it. And if it doesn't work out, you can always try something else and stop doing it. So.
Well, I think that's what's important about that is what you said first. You got to know where you are. You got to know what you can spend, and then the position that you're in will directly drive what you can spend and how much risk you can take on that. So
absolutely.
I think that's great.
Was that 4 or 5? Let me see. 1.
That was
okay.
4.
My last point was never stop researching. So on a daily basis, I honestly think, I don't know. I don't really know how to gauge this, but maybe 10 to 30% of what I do on a daily basis is learning new things. I don't set out in the beginning of the day to force myself to learn something new, but with all of the changes that are happening online, I have to be up to date with what's going on in our industry and what Amazon's changing next. But basically, my point is to never stop learning and never stop researching. You never know if you're paying too much for a service that you have. Are there new tools to use for what you're selling? Is something new happening in your particular niche or industry that you need to be up to date on? You never know where you'll find ways to drive more revenue or to cut costs somewhere. So just keep your head on a swivel out there. Make sure you're always researching what's going on, what your competitors are doing, what you can be doing better, because you'll never know, what kind of new revenue drivers you'll find, or if you're, overpaying for something that you've been doing for months or years, and you never thought to change. So that's my final fast five.
Good. Yeah. So for this week, I focused on branding and tips to enhance your creative. There's a lot that is going on right now with the businesses that I'm working on, improving the platforms that they're present on. And really, it comes down to having a very well-defined brand style guide. And that's what most of these things I'm about to speak about come from. So developing out a style guide is something that you must spend time doing. It takes a handful of hours. And if you have business partners, you all have to be in agreement, and it can be difficult. So at the end of the day, it's the most important thing for your business if you're going to be online. It's taking who you are and what you do and who you serve and the features of all your products and representing them digitally. That's what it is. So one of the ways that I want to focus on, so I have five. I've got gradients, the icons, and little pieces that you use to express your features and services. And then I go into graphics and a style guide, importance, and then platform specific sizing. So those are my five that I want to talk about. First, for gradients, the ability for a gradient to enhance the creative is tenfold. Finding out the colors that you guys want to have in your brand and use and represent your brand. You want to have between 1 and 2 colors that you use for your primary colors, and then 3 to 4 secondary colors that you use, whether those are in your logo, present in your logo or not. Those we want to have defined, at least for the hex code. There are plenty of other different ways to represent colors. So look into that and make sure if you're going to use those that you have them defined as well in that style guide. And then looking at the tints that go along with those colors really help to give you a lot more options when it comes into creating backgrounds for your page on your website, for your social posts that you're going to do, for your listings, for your products. And all of that can be carried over with what you do from your gradients. One of the other things, the second one, the icons that you use, and I really stress looking at simple ones that you can download and finding a style or a bundle that really resonates with you and your brand position. So if you're like a technology company, you might want to look for a whole slew of technology icons that you can purchase and just use and represent, and then figure out what the colors of those should be and stay consistent with them. These should speak to the features. They should speak to your culture. They should speak to maybe your process. So look for icons that accurately represent each one of those and all of the different parts that make you, your business. And then you want to get into graphics. So the third one is graphics, and representing either the features altogether as 1 through 3 or 4, but you want to try to have a handful of graphics that represent and speak to each one of the products and each one of the services and parts of your process. So having something that kind of culminates everything and puts it together into one image to represent you, your brand, your product, the person you serve, the problem that you solve, any of those, having standard graphics, at least having one to represent each one of those, and then grow from there is important. The fourth one was the style guide and the basic fundamentals of the style guide: color and things like the color, the fonts, and the um, messaging around your brand. All are basic fundamentals of the style guide that you need to have in place. So, like I mentioned earlier, defining specifically the colors, their hex code, and then the variations of the tint are something that we go through in our style guide process. It's the very first step. And then going into fonts, making sure you have one for your headers, and make sure you have one for easy to read text. So ones that are designed for specifically for short, bold phrases that you want to stand out, and then others that are meant for content. And you want to make sure those are serving the purpose that they're intended, meaning we want them to be clear if it's for short text that stand out. And then if it's for long format text, we want to make sure that it can be legible for that too. And then the last one is platform specific sizing. You want to make sure and be very cognizant of your creative. If you're only going to focus on one or two platforms and you want to take that and just repurpose it, that's great and that's fine. And know that you're doing that just for activity's sake, to be present on the other platforms. But if you're really going to put focus on being on LinkedIn, you want to know exactly the sizing for those posts. And then same thing that carries over into your ads. You want to be very specific on the size of the creative used in the ad, and make sure you're creating that creative specifically for that ad. So that the width and the height and everything is actually corresponding with what you're using it for. The last thing I want to say about platform specific is even if you don't intend to be active on a platform, take your logo and your cover image and resize them to make sure that every single place that someone could accidentally fall onto your brand at least represents somebody who's attentive and has clearly represents you. It doesn't have an image that doesn't fit. So make sure that you have the LinkedIn specific sizing, and then your Facebook, and then your Google My Business, and make sure that the favicon that you have, the favicon on your website, is the right size. So all those different things are important. So that's my fast 5 on branding tips and ways to enhance.
One last piece with that too. For the sizing, we even thought we were up to par with our LinkedIn banner. And then we realized that it's very, very slightly different for the sizing on mobile. We already planned for the sizing to be different, but then when we actually uploaded it, it was slightly different. So definitely make sure for desktop usage and mobile usage that you're checking all the sizes. That was a good point. Yeah. I actually have a few questions that are related to most of the Fast 5 that you just mentioned, if we want to dive into some of those questions now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've taken them from what we were given as far as feedback last week. We had a few questions we didn't get to. And since it's right on the same topic lines, I figured I would go ahead and throw them out there.
Yeah, what we got?
So since we were talking about content a lot, content specific to each brand, some of our viewers and listeners were wondering how to make their posts more engaging.
Yeah, so the best way is to be in line with the actual platform that you're creating content on. So know that if they're coming to your website, they're looking for information. So give the right information and be very descriptive, and know the questions that a lot of people ask. So when you're creating content for a social media, you want to be in line with what's expected on that social media. What you're going to create on LinkedIn is going to be much more professional and maybe more polished, but also more specific on the content than if you were going to go onto TikTok or Instagram, for example. The content you create there should be in line with what's expected on the platform. So using the format that works best on that platform, right? For TikTok and for Instagram, it's video, and taking what you do and why you do it and the features of it, and starting to manipulate that into how that platform expects content to be. So to create in high engagement, you have to be either entertaining, really informative, or um, having some sort of offer or value that comes from that piece. So focus on the value.
I think that's great advice. We even think about that a lot, just small tweaks to a certain piece of content to make sure that they fit better on one platform versus another. Those small adjustments, I think, go a long way in addressing the audience, like you were mentioning, that are on each of the platforms. So I think those were some great tips.
Well, and not every time you not every business is able to create engaging creative. So I think being open and knowing, like you said in your Fast Five, knowing your financial position allows you to know, okay, can we invest in ads? And using advertising is the best way to ensure that you get the reach, especially if you're a new business. And you want to run ads where people are looking for your products. One, if you really want to run a productive ad campaign. If you're just trying to build brand awareness, social platforms are great. But that leads me into wondering, what type of ads can you run on Amazon, and what kind of placement can you pay to get?
If we want to segue to that, I'll go ahead and just share my screen, because there's a lot of
Yeah, go ahead.
specific placements that are hard to explain without um, actually visiting a listing. So,
Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and pull that up, that'd be
yeah.
great.
Okay, so I just popped onto Amazon. I went to bestsellers, just to find, some kind of a product that's up. I actually like these, so I will. This is not an ad. I guess it is now. Oh, actually, this is a great listing to review for a few different reasons. I'll get into this later, but the reason I said that is because this listing is actually not optimized. And I'll go into that again later for what that really means. But okay, so on a search page, there are a ton of different placements for ads, and this is a really easy way to dive into which ad types are offered on Amazon, just because we'll be able to see where they show up. So on a search page, a lot of what you see right here are called sponsor display ads. There's a placement here for sponsored display, over here underneath the buy box, and then underneath of the bullet points. And sponsored display ads are able to target products, they're able to target keywords, and they're able to target categories, much like the other kinds of ads on Amazon. But what's unique for sponsored display is that they can also target audiences, which is closer to what a Facebook or a Google ad could do. This is the version of ads that you'll hear most frequently associated with product ads in articles and things off of Amazon. So these are the smart ads that kind of follow you around in your day-to-day shopping and your Google searching. So these placements are sponsored display. You can do a custom creative. So these are not actually using a custom creative. They just have the product hero image, the main image, and the product title. But you can use a custom photo here. You can have a custom phrase with it, or you can change the logo. And those are sponsored display ads. These are going to be sponsored product ads. These also show up on the search page. So if we were just searching Amazon for like energy drink, I'm not sure how they rank, but these up top are sponsored product. You'll see this little sponsored here. Usually there's a banner up here. Let me see if I did. If I just typed in drink, this with this huge image you see here and three different product offerings. This is sponsored brand. It's usually above the sponsored product here. And these are,
So you're able to,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt, but so you're able to really specifically target not just key phrases, but other brands and even listings, right? That are aligned with what you're trying to your product
yeah,
serves.
absolutely. So I'm not sure how familiar all of our viewers are with Amazon, but this up here in the URL, they'll show you an ASIN. This is like the UPC or the SKU. It's the individual product identifier of this pack of Gatorade, for example. And I can run an ad that targets this specific information. So if I wanted to be on this specific listing, not this flavor, but only this, maybe I have a drink that's berry flavored, fruit punch flavored, and orange flavored, or just one of the above. And so these are comparable products, and I want to show up here. I can grab that ASIN and throw it in a sponsored product ad, which would be one of these. That's how they're going to get here, or a sponsored brand ad that shows up here. Obviously, the broader the keyword or the broader the target, the more expensive. So Pepsi, one of the biggest names in the game, they can target the word drink and show up at the top every single time. If you're a newer brand or you have a lower budget, you might do sports drink or energy drink, or something really, really specific like powdered energy drink sticks.
Or like keto friendly energy
Yeah, you
drink or
can go
something,
really,
right?
really niche. You can put flavors in there, whatever is kind of in your budget. But those are some of the search page placements for sponsored brand and sponsored products. Again, those forms of ads, you can target keywords, product ASINs like you see here, categories. They kind of have a little bit more flexibility, but they don't do audience targeting. They actually show these a couple of times throughout the search page too. This video ad that you see here is a form of sponsored brand, anything that really allows you to explain who you are as a brand and get some more creative in there is going to probably be a sponsored brand ad. These show up a little closer to the middle of the page, not quite in the middle. And then if you keep scrolling down a little without getting dizzy, you'll see another line of sponsored products. You should see one more line of sponsored products before the end down here. And then you'll see some sponsored display at the bottom. There is one custom ad that can show up on the left side of the search page. These placements are really, really cool, and they are definitely a higher end branded ad that you can do. This is through DSP, so you have to have a special advertising account on Amazon to do this. Most sellers don't have access to DSP. It's definitely more high end and advanced. But this is a really cool placement, and you have a lot of different kind of creatives that you can use over there. And then let's see. So sponsored product, again, just kind of revisiting that one more time, also shows up here. So you'll see these a lot on mobile and on desktop shopping. So these are all sponsored, every single thing here. They don't repeat that it's sponsored, but anything here is going to be an ad. And then at the bottom of the page, you usually get another line of the sponsored product and then some more sponsored display. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity for placements on a product page. General rule of thumb is that with sponsored display, you get more placement opportunity. You're seeing ads here underneath the bullet points, all of the main spots. And so those are really pretty expensive. But if you get a groove going with sponsored display, Amazon kind of claims that they're smarter in reaction. And so they'll keep serving, in the in most opportune places. It really depends. That you've got to be really on top of your ads, but a lot of different ways you can target different brands. You can promote your own business and your own products, and you can even target your own products with the same
to protect them, right? I think that's one of the things that is great about all of this reach is that you as a brand can target these specifically, and that is also what makes it really difficult and challenging, is that you can also be targeted as well. So I know that you have that incorporated into your strategy. Is what terms do we want to protect that are unique to us?
Exactly. So for example, Gatorade, Gatorade is showing up in all the top of search placements, which is exactly what you want to do. But other brands are going to want to target them as well. If you've got an electrolyte based drink, you'll want to show up somewhere on the search page for Gatorade. It's probably going to be full with their own products. The other piece of this is that the more that you convert on some of the keywords with your ads running, your organic placement will increase. So obviously these are all Gatorade products. They have very high relevancy with the brand Gatorade, and so they show up here organically now without having to run an ad there. But you definitely, have to protect your brand name. Others are going to compete against you, and you'll want to take up all the real estate that you can under your brand for, protection and growth purposes.
Well, I think that's a lot of great information. We went a little long on our Fast Five today, but I think that we did get into some really good details and some great information on Amazon listing, and then how to make sure that you, when you pay for ads like that, at least represent your brand accurately and promote engagement. So I think in our 30 minutes today, we really got into some majors. And even though we didn't get to all the questions and some of the ones that were posted today, we will be back next week. And we look forward to serving you guys that way and providing more information on these topics.
Yeah, always feel free to send us follow-up emails and to ask questions during these sessions. I know we get really in depth with some of these. This is our bread and butter. So if you've got follow-up questions or you want us to show you a few tips and tricks, we'd love to, connect with you more directly. We'll have our emails and everything, points of contact linked with this podcast, and we'd love to hear from you guys.
Awesome. Well, enjoy and have a good rest of your day, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.